everybody, I'm Ken Good from Solibri UK Ltd, and in today's session we're going to take a look at how we can collaborate with others to share information once we've run some checks and identified some issues inside Solibri Office. There's various different ways we can collaborate with others, different methods we can use, but we'll start by taking a look at some of the options on this next slide. So as you can see, there's a few options open to us, but what we'll do is we'll start on this side and we'll take a look at what we can do just within the Solibri product family. We'll take a model that's already been prepared. There are some issues that have been identified and presentation created. We'll take a look at that rather than in Solibri Office. We'll see how that can be used in conjunction with Solibri Anywhere, and then we can return that back into Office before we then look at some of the external methods. So we'll take a look at this side. We'll then take a look at some of the other options here, such as outputting to the static formats, how we can output using the BIM collaboration format option, which can either be straight into the authoring tool, or we can send straight into some of the online collaboration systems that Solibri supports. So what I'll do is I'll actually switch across to Solibri Anywhere, and if you bear with me. So this is a model that we looked at in some of the previous sessions. What's actually been done here is we've gone through the checking process and we've processed all of the results from these various different rule sets that have been run on the federated model. As a result of that, we've then gone to the communication stage where we've created presentations. These are made up of these various issues, and what we're actually looking at here, the giveaway is at the top it says Solibri Anywhere if we're running on a Mac. It says it in the middle, the little icon at the side is the Anywhere icon rather than the Office icon. But if we go back to checking, the other way we can tell is checking has no buttons. We can't do the checks here. We can still come in and we can review, so we can come down to this level here and we can actually see the results here and eventually get to the description. It'll convert and show the slides as well. But as you can see, we can't do any processing here because this is the free viewer product. So returning to communication, what we can do is use this dialogue to run through these issues and add further comments or notes or tweak the views or whatever we have to do. So in this case here, for example, we'll just take the top one. What we have right now currently is just one image that depicts what the problem is. What I could do is use all the standard tools. So I can come in here, switch on my sectioning tool. We could then take the section plane itself, and when I get the keyboard to respond, we can actually move the section. So actually, if I come across to the other side, I'll pick up this rear section plane and extend it through this wall. So now what we have is a little bit more context of where this wall happens to be in the grand scheme of things. So we have this little tiny piece of wall up here. If I turn off my sections, I'm going to use the info tool, which the shortcut's number 5, to select this piece of wall. I only want to select it so visually it stands out, and what I could then do is come in here and I can actually add a fresh image. So we now have this option or this option, which is not staggeringly different, but you can see there is a difference between them. I can also come in here and I can add further notes to the issue. That will be date stamped, time stamped in the file itself, so we know exactly who made those changes. Because I'm on the same machine and I'm signed in as the same user, then it all comes back to my own profile. But if lots of individual parties are commenting, the initials and the details would reflect who was responsible at that particular stage. So we can go through and we can do other changes when we go, it's a bit more interesting. Let's grab this one here, for example, because it already has numerous different images trying to depict what the problem is. Again, we might come in here and say, is it saying it's wrong? And I've done that to image number 2 as part of issue number 6. So we can carry on, we can review and do what we have to do. From here we can also report out to the various different formats. This ties back to the PowerPoint that showed you the various different output formats. Let me just bring that on screen. So this is it just as an image. So right now we're commenting inside the Office product. These output formats here, we can go out to the various different BCF report formats. We can do our general reports, so that's the PDFs and our RTFs. And we can also, as you can see, export to Excel. So we'll come back to that later, and I'll do the reporting later. The other thing as well is just it's important to include the Anywhere product in the workflow, but we can also synchronise straight to the BCF connector output options. So we can come in here and we can configure a server with a connection to one of the 5 different products that we support. You can see there's a various list here. We're not going to go through those today because there's 5 different providers. They each have their own options and each have their own way of working, and you'll probably have your own requirements, and maybe they're not even stipulated by yourself. So we won't go through them individually, but we'll come back and take a quick look later on. So I'll cancel out for now. So all I'm going to do just to finish off is take a quick note. It was BV6. And I'm actually going old school and writing this on a piece of paper in front of me, and BV1, so we can remember what one's been done here. So I'm just going to save this, and that just saves the regular SMC file. And once that's done, I'm going to just close this completely, and then switch across to a session that was open earlier, very Blue Peter style. But in here, what I've done is the recent menu, I've already pinned exactly the same file to the top of the list, so I can go and find it. But if I open this now, what we'll get to see is if we go to communication, well, if we go to checking, you'll see straight off I've got the check options, and I've got more options down here because I'm now using Solibri Office. When I go to communication now, if we look at BV number 1, what we can see is that we have one image here, and now this newly created image with my further notes, etc. listed on here. And further down in the listings, there's various different options we can look at. That's the created stamp there, but the modification date, if we just refresh that, we can see that BV number 1 was modified at whatever time. Where did it go? Here we go. Just a few minutes ago. Likewise, we then changed this one here, and that's gone back to BV number 6, number 2, where I added a further comment onto that list there. So we can include all of the members of the product family in this operation where we pass models between different parties. They don't necessarily have to tie up and restrict a license. It can be done in the free version. So that's one method. If we now move on and start to look at the external reporting methods we can use, the first thing I would probably do is just change the responsibilities here and maybe just flag all these issues which right now are tagged for structural comment. So I'm just going to mark those issues. What that means I can do then is we can see them obviously highlighted in this list here, but when I look at the presentation and go to report, this is where we start to see the different output options. So as I say, we have various methods. We have the 2 most basic ones are this output to PDF and output to rich text. PDF's a static document. Rich text is like a very, very old school Word document. But you can go in and you can format and you can add headers and do various bits and pieces to it. Literally, if I go PDF, just as a quick example, rather than report all, I'm going to report only the marked ones. So we could say bin validation checks for, can't spell, for structural comments only. We can look at the page setup where we can format it and change the image quality. Let's just make it medium. But if I save that, that's going to output to my desktop in this case. And here we have, if we go, we are already on full page. If we go down through the document, we can see various different bits here. So we can output to these sort of formats. These tend to be used more for a static report of what stage of play is within a project. There is no coming back from this once it's been reported out. It doesn't feed back into the software at all. Similarly, we can output to Excel. With Excel, we can actually go and create our own template. There's a bunch of templates already in here, but you can see from this we can create our own default. I'm not going to go through that process just now, but by going to Excel, we're able to define things like graphics, company, fonts, colours, branding, all those sort of side of things. We'll report everything this time, and I'm just going to hit the old save button again. Save that to the desktop. And you'll see that launches and opens up Solibri. So in this case, I've just gone for every possible field. Not all of them have been used, but you can see in here that we have this issue, BV number 6, for example, has the various different images associated with that. So we have control over all those aspects as well. In the template, we can control all the details in the header, we can control what fields are used, what columns are used. So we can define how this is going to output. We can even do things like where the page separators are, all the usual stuff that we do in Excel. So I'm going to close that down for now. As I say, it's not saved. As I say for now, these formats, the output here and give us a static report of the state of play, but actually when it comes to proper collaboration, when we want to feed things backwards and forwards, then we're going to have to look at the different methods. So for those, if I report now, for those we'd use the BCF formats. So BCF stands for BIM Collaboration Format. It's a format file that includes various different bits related to each issue. So there'll be the title, the description, the image, the link components, the labels, the responsibilities, whatever else goes in there. So lots of different bits of critical information for each individual issue. What I'll do is let's choose a format. So when it comes to this, it's not just a case of randomly picking one. You should have some communication with who you're going to be BIM communicating with. But we need to find out from the other side what format they support. There's slight variations between them. You can go into BCF history and find out what those are. But right now I'm going to stick with version 2 because that's middle of the road. And what this does is that will support the various different outputs, including the multiple slides and images, etc. But it drops off a couple of the later tabs that are included in version 2.1. So right now I'm just going to pick save. Don't have to do any other configuration. This creates a file that is a physical .bcf zip. That's the format for BCF 1 and 2. For BCF 2.1 it creates a .bcf, so there's slight differences in the file extension itself. But if I just save that now, then that outputs and saves to my desktop. Just before I leave Solibri for now, we'll take a final look at how we export to our various different online systems. So the first step is we configure the server and the connection within our BCF connector settings. This just installs as part of the software these days. So the first thing we'd probably do is add a new server. Pick which server it is. I'm not going to go through that because that'll take me out to an external web page to authenticate and everything, but if I grab this one here for example, when you've selected a server you can then access what projects are listed on that server. This again will all vary depending on your account and your access permissions and various other attributes. As I said earlier, you might not even have access to define these things yourselves. You may just be a third party acting on these. So if I pick one of these projects as an example, we can set this as a default. We can also go in and do things like configure the value conversion. So for example, in Solibri we picked pretty much what we wanted in here, but in the real world on the online systems there will be lots of other parties working with their own particular names and terminology and everything else. So what we do is set up the mapping so that it's able to synchronise between them, and we go through each one of these and set those as required depending on the project. You can also see at the top there that you can save this configuration, so it's not going to have to be something you do every single time if there is replication between projects. We can also set filters on any new issues that come in because, again, each party might be using slightly different terminology, so that can also be configured and saved for other projects. If I OK out of that dialog to actually use this technology, then all we do is from communication, and assuming you have an account with one of these systems and it's all set up and configured properly. So to use the technology, all we actually do is pick the appropriate presentation from the list, right click on it and pick Synchronize. We then get another dialog because it might be we're at a stage of we're just sending data to the server, or it might be we've had information that there's been a major update, we might have been online ourselves. Each of these systems will notify by email and things like that, so you may have an update that there is information downloaded, so you can come in and you can choose to go and pick, are you just downloading new issues or updates? It may be that you want to do this a few times so that you put updates in one presentation, you put new updates, or new issues, sorry, into a completely different presentation, so we can play around with that, and you see there's access to the filters and the value conversions, etc. I'm not going to go through with that just now because each one of the systems works in its own slightly different way, and we could spend all day going through those combinations. So for now, what we'll do is come out completely from Solibri, and we're going to go take a look at what happens on the other end if we go to ArchiCAD. In here, what I've done is I've installed the add-on from Cubase to give me access to their version of the BCF Manager, and all I need to do here is go and just open the BCF file that I output 5-10 minutes ago, whatever it is. So we can see the list of issues that comes from the presentation from Solibri, and what I'm going to do is come down to this one first of all, and what I'll do then is create a section box around the visible element. So to tweak the view, we'll take the top of the section, pull it down slightly so we can actually see what's going on inside there. Naturally there's a dirty grey zone in the way, so let's just hide that there for now. And hopefully, finally, we can see down here, we can see that the zone and the space don't quite tie together. So zoom in, grab the boundary of the zone, and we'll just offset it to that corner. So now the zone physically fills the room, the space in which it's meant to be. So that's one issue. We can then go and we can add further comments, and we can mark it off that we've edited, etc. I'm not going through that whole process just now. Again, that varies slightly depending on the method you use for commenting on these issues, but we can go through and carry on and take a look at something else. So let's jump back up to this issue here. So I've just double clicked, and what that's done is selected the components that are involved here. I think we can see quite clearly what the issue is. We don't quite have the necessary height to these columns, so what we'll do is we'll go in and change the settings. So they are 26, and I think it should be 305. When we do that, the columns update. That's all good, that's sorted. We'll take a look at one final one, and that's just this one here. Again, if we double click, what that's done is shown the whole model, but we can see the selection shows the two components are actually at fault. So this particular issue, as we can see from the graphic, and if we read the description in here, what we can see is that we have a wall inside another wall. So if I just click that edge, naturally wants to edit, let's deselect, and then click here, and there we go. So that's selected the wall that's at fault, the wrong wall, and all we do is just physically delete it, and that's it done. So we come back in here, and what we'll do this time is go and just add a quick comment to say duplicate where the problem wall's been removed. We can go through these various different attributes, but again, that very much depends project to project and company by company. So all I'm going to do is just mark that as resolved and closed, and that effectively finishes off what we need to do there. We then carry on through the rest of the list, fix the different issues so we create a perfect model, and all that we have to do at the end of it is reissue the updated BCF file. So this, if I now switch back to this image here, so what we've actually done at this stage is we've gone from Solibri, we've gone through BCF, straight into the authoring tool. The BCF at this stage can still be pushed online to the online systems if we want, we don't have to synchronise directly with them. But from here in the authoring tool, what we've done is updated the model, so we're now at a stage that we can reissue an updated IFC file. We can also update an updated BCF file, which then completes the loop to come back into Solibri. And what then happens is Solibri updates the model, runs a few more checks, and hopefully fixes all these issues. So when we come back in here, it's a quick process of going there, We'll pretend I'm not going through all the steps here, but what I can do is update that model, and we'll say update it. So rather than point to revision A, let's now point to revision B. Okay, that one. This then processes. We just show the entire model. There's not much to see at this stage different other than this little extension. When we go to checking, everything's greyed out. Because there's been a change, the results are unsynchronized because the content in the model's changed. So what I want to do is just check. I've gone through this previously in one of the earlier sessions, so I won't spend too much time on it, but you can see there's some other issues been identified that we need to go and take a look at. But what I'm actually interested in is if we come to communication, what we can start to see is in this BIM validation list, some of those issues that I picked out. So the first one that's listed here is the columns, and we can now see the columns are updated and correctly touch the roof. We can then come in and add in our own comments and physically close the issue here because I didn't close it in the BCF. But it's only once the model has physically been updated and the issue has been physically resolved that it's fixed. If the issue is not physically resolved in the model, the checking stage will still pick up those errors and it will still report them as being wrong. So even if somebody's commented in the BCF that they've fixed it, they've done it, or it's not an issue, it still has to be resolved in the model. So that one is resolved. We can go and add the various comments and we can change the status, etc. up here. So we can now see that that issue has been closed. If we have another quick look, the other two things that I did, this was one of them. And actually in this particular file, I did the wrong one. So this one has not been updated in the BCF that I've used, or in the IFC file that's been used. So we'll probably skip over that one for now. But hopefully at the very end, yes, when we go here, we can see there's no warning triangle here now, so what that means is that issue no longer exists in the results. And likewise, when we look at the 3D view, which is live and reflects the current content of all of the IFC files, we can see there's no duplicate wall in there. We're looking at just one clean, simple wall. So that shows an example of how we collaborate internally and externally, how we can do this round trip of the information, and hopefully gives you an overview of some of the different techniques we can use to collaborate with others once we've done our model checking inside Solibri. Thanks for your time.